Hello, my name is Ain Rebello, and this is my Comparative Criminal Justice Critical Assignment. Before we talk about the criminal justice systems of the 6 model nations, I think it's important to discuss what comparative criminal justice is and why it's important. Comparative criminal justice is used to examine and compare the structures and functions of criminal justice systems worldwide, while also encompassing the study of international law and transnational crimes to which multiple nations are subjected to. One benefit of comparative criminal justice system is its pragmatic value that allows policymakers to identify effective practices from other legal systems that may be implemented within the American criminal justice framework. So since I only have 10 minutes, I'm going to give a brief overview, so feel free to pause and read at your discretion. Just like the United States, the United Kingdom's legal system is based on common law, which incorporates elements of both canon law, feudal customs, and Roman law, which is heavily grounded in legal precedent and draws from historical documents. On the other hand, the French and German legal systems are based in civil law, in which the government issues codified statutes that serve as the primary source of law rather than judicial precedent. However, just like the United States, the German legal system incorporates both federal and state governments sharing authority to codify statutes which serve as the primary source of the law. The Japanese legal system, however, is a hybrid legal tradition that combines elements of both European civil law and Anglo-American legal traditions found within common law. The Chinese legal system is based on socialist law, which is rooted in socialist principles such as the absence of social classes and collective ownership, while the Saudi Arabian legal system is based on sacred law in which religious texts serve as the primary source of the law, in this case the Sharia and the Sunnah. In regards to policing, the United Kingdom's police force is just like the United States in which they operate as civilians in uniform, gaining public support through consent rather than coercion. However, unlike the United States, English police do not carry firearms. However, the French police are much more specialized and militarized, operating primarily on behalf of the state rather than relying on public consent under the Ministry of Defense. German policing is similar to the United States in that each state in Germany maintains multiple types of police forces, with some police functioning as municipal police and other police investigating much more serious crimes. Japan also employs the National Police Agency, which oversees several regional bureaus, with the prefectural police consisting of 47 autonomous forces, each empowering to develop policies and procedures tailored to their prefecture's need, just like the Sheriff's Department in the United States. On the other hand, China has several law enforcement bodies, such as the Public Security Forces under the Ministry of Public Security, with the People's Liberation Army serving as the military wing of the Chinese Communist Party. Saudi Arabia also has several distinct police bodies with the Department of Public Safety, the Secret Police, and the Religious and Moral Police also operating within the country. English criminal procedure is based on the adversarial system, which is just like in the United States, in which the prosecution and defense present competing arguments before a neutral judge who ensures fairness and adherence to legal rules. Just like the United States, England also has the right to counsel, the right to remain silent, and the right to a trial by jury. However, all the other countries possess the inquisitorial system, in which judges play an active role in determining the truth through extensive pretrial investigations and interrogations. Just like in the United States, defendants have the right to a trial by jury. However, in Germany, there is no right to a trial by jury, as cases are decided by panels of professionals and lay judges. Similarly, in Japan, there is no trial by jury, as Japan employs a lay assessor system in which citizens sit alongside professional judges in serious cases. However, in China, there is no right to a trial by jury, as cases are decided by panels of judges. The right to legal counsel is limited, and while individuals may remain silent, silence can be interpreted negatively in their practice. Additionally, in Saudi Arabia, there is no right to a trial by jury, as cases are once again decided by judges, and there is no formal right to remain silent. Regarding the court system in the United States, the courts of limited jurisdiction are the district courts, the courts of general jurisdiction are the United States district courts, and the courts of intermediate appeal are the U.S. appellate courts. In the United Kingdom, the courts of limited jurisdiction are the magistrate courts, the courts of general jurisdiction are the crown courts, and the courts of intermediate appeal are the Court of Appeals. In France, the courts of limited jurisdiction are the Tribunal d'instance, the courts of general jurisdiction are the Assize courts, and the courts of intermediate appeal are the Courts of Appeal. In Germany, the courts of limited jurisdiction are the Amtsgericht, the courts of general jurisdiction are the Landgericht, and the courts of intermediate appeal are the Oberlandgericht. In China, the courts of limited jurisdiction are the primary people's courts, the courts of general jurisdiction are the intermediate people's courts, and the courts of intermediate appeal are the higher people's courts. In Saudi Arabia, the courts of limited jurisdiction are the first degree courts, the courts of general jurisdiction are the high courts, and the courts of intermediate appeal are the Court of Appeals. In Japan, the courts of limited jurisdiction are summary courts, The courts of general jurisdiction are the district courts, and the courts of intermediate appeal are the high courts. Regarding the corrections and sentencing process, the United States shares similar emphases with other European countries, focusing on rehabilitation, incapacitation, and restoration. In the United Kingdom, the primary goal is to reform offenders into law-abiding citizens, while in France, the emphasis is to reintegrate offenders into society. Similarly, in Germany, special units within German prisons focus on discipline, skill building, and community reintegration programs in order to encourage positive behavioral change, just like in the United States. On the other hand, we can see similar themes in corrections and sentencing regarding Asian countries, with Japan's penal system emphasizing both retribution and rehabilitation, aiming to return offenders to society while also addressing the harm caused to others. In China, they employ a formal social control mechanism designed to instill social order, including prisons, detention centers, labor reform facilities, and re-education camps and labor camps. Lastly, Saudi Arabia's penal system emphasizes retribution, rehabilitation, and deterrence, aiming to both punish offenders for the harm they have caused and to make the consequences of committing a crime outweigh any potential benefits. Now, defining terrorism is very tricky to do, as the definition of terrorism varies across geopolitical and state lines. However, the theme of terrorism that the United States shares with its definitions among all these other countries is the fact that terrorism is defined as a violent action with political motivations intended to psychologically impact a population or to coerce the government into committing an action it wouldn't have otherwise done in the first place. Regarding organized crime, the United Kingdom shares many similarities in the fact that organized crime largely consists of synthetic drug distribution and drug trafficking. However, in France and Germany, much organized crime consists of human trafficking due to the fact that Central Europe is the entrepot of immigration from third world countries. However, Germany has also seen an uptake in arms trafficking due to supply routes coming in from Eastern Europe. On the other hand, China's organized crime largely consists of trade in counterfeit goods and excisable goods, while organized crime in Japan continues to involve extortion and protection racketeering largely facilitated by gangs such as the Yakuza. Lastly, in Saudi Arabia, much organized crime includes labor trafficking and sex trafficking. When it comes to the juvenile justice system, the United Kingdom differs from its European neighbors and American counterparts in regards to the fact that the juvenile justice system in England focuses on isolating youth offenders rather than rehabilitation. On the other hand, France and Germany share similarities to America's juvenile justice system in the fact that the juvenile justice system emphasizes individual treatment and resocialization of youth through social welfare interventions rather than focusing on punishment. Additionally, just like in the United States and Japan, juvenile justice is administered by family courts that operate under parens patriae, where the court acts as a surrogate parent in guiding juveniles. However, in China, juveniles as young as 14 can be held fully responsible for serious crimes, while in Saudi Arabia, there is no separate juvenile justice system, with males under the age of 18 being subjugated to the same punishments as adults. These include harsh punishments such as flogging. Lastly, let's talk about religious influence in the law. Just like the United States, many common law countries such as the United Kingdom rely on biblical elements of canon law when making decisions and determining case precedent. Canon law and Hebrew law, found within the Old Testament of the Bible, listed a series of moral laws that were later transcribed into civil laws which regulated behavior within the jurisdiction of the Kingdom of Israel. Many of these laws, as defined within the Old Testament of the Bible, later elaborated natural law that enforced common law decisions. On the other hand, the influence of canon law can be found within the framework of civil law, such as in France's Declaration of the Rights of Man and of Citizen. This legal document, written in part by Thomas Jefferson, also included a series of Catholic teachings regarding canon law, such as the principle of the common good as outlined in Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica. On the other hand, although the modern Chinese legal system is secular due to the principles of socialist law, the Chinese legal systems before the communist takeover of China was based on Confucian thought. Lastly, Saudi Arabia is the only country among the 6 model nations that relies primarily on sacred law rather than other constitutional frameworks. This is due to the fact that the laws are derived from the Sharia and the Sunnah according to Article 1 of the Basic Law of Governance of Saudi Arabia. Thank you.